Okay, so hello and welcome back. And the question today is if you can see a scale on a piano keyboard, can you see in your mind's eye, quote unquote, a scale on a guitar fretboard? And so let's experiment with this today. Let's be graph paper alchemists and get to work. What we have here today, drawn on this piece of paper, is a picture. Hopefully, you can visualize there a piano keyboard with using the C note here. Yep, the new playable graph. So, this is a piano keyboard. If you don't know already, if I'm going to start, with complete beginners here. I'm going to give these lessons explaining things so as if you totally don't know. This is a piano keyboard, and it repeats itself. This is all you need to know. These are all the 12 notes, and afterward, here's the tonal order: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. This is the this is the division. You look at it, the keyboard like this. See, it's set up all the way across, so your eye can't really pick this out, and so music isn't so natural to just everybody. People must study their instruments, and it's you want to have a way to categorize what's going on, and so they lay out things in these instruments in a certain way, so you can pick out a major key. And so at some point in the major on a keyboard, one of the major scales is going to be laid out, and they chose the key of C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. A major scale is in tones: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Or do. That's why it's a key, because it takes a certain pattern to create movement. What does movement mean? It means the way that your ear just wanted to hear the first note again right after going to this B. So once again, okay? So now that you can hear what we're talking about, which makes it all the more easier to understand, how is a guitar laid out? Is a guitar laid out in some kind of, is there a visual pattern to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do on the guitar? And I believe that there is, and I want to show it to you here on the graph. The way that it's visualized on the piano is mechanically, mentally different than the mechanics of thought you'll use to process how it is on the guitar. So, for example, if you want the key of D on the guitar, you don't just use all the white notes and then E and all the white notes. It doesn't work like that. That's a different story. A key, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, must be this pattern. This is one note. This is a half step. This is a whole step. If you skip a note, you always have a whole step. So skip a note, don't skip. Skip a note, skip a note, skip a note, don't skip. So this here is a half step in the scale. And there's another half step just as it repeats into itself. Connects, joins with itself by a half step. As evidenced right there on your piano keyboard, it'll be another white note and another white note, the B and the C respectively. So, on a piano keyboard then, for perhaps if you wanted the key of, say, D, you would start with a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step back to D. So, that seems at first very confusing, like, oh, well, man, boy, look how confusing piano gets, but take a step back or play with that key for a while, and then you'll realize, oh, okay, whenever I'm in this group of notes, I'm going to play black key, white key, white key, and when I'm in this group of notes, I'm going to play black key, white key, and then that extra white key because this has that extra piece that this doesn't. And this is another thing you want to remember: the 3 and the 4. The white notes here, the tones that aren't skipped, that make up a pattern here for a major scale, always include 3 notes in this group and 4 notes in this group, and that'll be part of the mechanics of you knowing your fretboard scale down 1 string and perhaps down 2 strings. That pattern of 3 and 4 is what you need to know for string by string lateral movement. See, on a guitar, in a piano, the movement it's all about how you can move through the notes and what you can play. On a piano, you can play bass and high together, and you can on a guitar too. But because of the layout, obviously it'll create some different opportunities for each instrumentalist. So, getting more to the point here, how does this translate to a guitar? So, with piano, you have this, you learn a different visual pattern, and it'll create a different key. And then, there's other keys that are like white note, black key, white note, black key. And I'm not going to go over which is what right now, because we're not talking piano too much. We just needed to understand, for reference to learning your guitar fretboard up and down. So, for example, on a piano, once you know that key here in this box, it's all over the fretboard. You understand the entire 88 key piano by understanding the combination in this box. So, somewhat of a similar effect here. All you need is 1 pattern on a guitar, and a guitar, you can just move that 1 pattern up and down the fretboard. And so we're going to start drawing out the pattern here. So this would be the nut of a guitar, and the open strings would ring E, A, D, sorry for my hand in the way, G, B, and E. Always remember your string shift here. From the B string and the E string are always, everything is shifted down 1 box, similar to replicating what happens on your guitar. So using the A string here, I'm going to draw a box, a big box, because this is what the guitar does. Right now, how many notes do you have? 4 notes. That leaves 1, 2, 3, 4. That leaves 3 notes left to know. Okay? And although it is not this 4 with this 3 left out, it doesn't work that way. How this works, this square box here is what is your cluster. If you can find this cluster, you can find the other 3 notes, and at that moment you have all 7 notes of the scale under your fingers, and wherever you have fretted, the root note I'm about to show you is where that scale will be. So now you have all 12 scales, every note of every major scale under your fingertips at that moment, and now you can start making music on your guitar with that, and then learning intervals and learning the modes and learning all the other standing comes from the fact that you can make music all over your fretboard simply. Okay, so that's how this graph paper method is, the intention of it to work. Now, let's go over this square a little bit. I'm going to give you a magic code right here. I'm going to put an R in this box because this is your magic root note box for the parent note of a major scale. Now, modes occur on different notes, but we'll talk about modes in another video. So this is not modal information, but I've made videos about that for advanced people that already know this and are ready to get into modes. There's other videos. Okay, so this is a root. Some other things I'm going to write here. This would be your root. This is your flat second, so this is your second. This is your flat third, so this is your third. This is your fourth. There's no flat fourth for you beginners, anything like that. You have to know this pattern, or get to know this pattern, and you'll get to know it as soon as you can start making music with it. Then your fifths. Fifth is so important it gets a fifth on each side of it. This is your fifth, with a black key being the flat fifth and the sharp fifth. So fourth, flat fifth, fifth, fourth, flat fifth, fifth, sharp fifth, and then your sixth, flat seven, and seven. And that's the interval charts. Let's hear your intervals. Get some emotion going behind this idea here. When you're going to a flat second, which is not in a major scale, it's going to sound with high intention, which meaning maybe more worrisome than a more pleasing sounding tone configuration. Let's hear it. I think Jaws is on the way. Oh yeah, get the hell out of the water, right? Okay, so now let's be a little more triumphant here. A little basic, your whole step, and then a minor third. And a major third. Happy, kinda sad, little bit annoyed, something's not right, something's alright, now it's gonna be okay. Welcome to outer space. Very congruent with each other. That's the nature of the fifth. Let's hear the flat fifth. Can you hear why this was called the devil's interval? Oh no, oh no. Here's the actual fish, and here's the danger. There's danger in the air. There it is. See what music can do? Now we have the sharp fifth here, which always has a kind of it's a little higher than the fifth, and it's got a little bit of congruency like the fifth, but it's got concern to it. Now let's go for a more pleasing in-scale note. But actually quite a bit of tension because it's pretty far away, getting closer to itself, maybe at the octave. Actually, the farthest away you can get from C, by the way, a neat thing to know, is that devil's interval is the split point between the C and the other C. That's the exact halfway note. And perhaps that's why it sounds like it does. And the best note you can have is just on the other side of that. And now we're here at concern, and now we're here. Now this is a minor. You don't need to know that right now. A lot of tension, but it wants to resolve. Okay, so those are your that's the sounds that's here in this scale, and like I thought, I got a little off track there. So pull my graph paper down here a little bit to show you this. In this do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, there is half steps, meaning notes that naturally fall right next to each other in the scale. The mi and the fa have to be a half step. That's what makes that sound. So your brain apparently likes the sound of a half step, that dangerous sound right in the middle of the scale, and brings the early tension, then it's the final tension, and it resolves into itself with early tension, final tension, and on and on and on. That's what you're hearing as you go up a scale, and it leads into itself. So half step here in the middle. The Guitar Fretboard is taking advantage of this. This is the mechanic that's making the fretboard. So we have a half step here, and another half step here. Doesn't show up on this graph, but as we talked about, you always stack this grouping here against itself. So there's always a B to C, a half step right here. And from there, we have a root note here. So this would be always our C, and the guitar takes advantage of this half step and this half step. And as we see in the key of C, we could use B and C and E and F. So many times I'll call this my B, C, E, F square when I'm in the key of C. But when it comes to other keys, I don't need to know the notes. I actually just rely on what's called the intervals. I need to know in a major scale, I have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, and I don't have a 1 and a flat 2, a 1 and a flat 3, a 1 and a flat 5th, and I don't have those notes. Which incidentally create a blank, an avoid note of, a group of avoid notes that forms the shape of your pentatonic scale, which is pretty crazy. But I never jam thinking about the avoid notes in the shape of a pentatonic. I concentrate on my squares, and I know everywhere on the fretboard. That's how I do it, and maybe you'll do it too. So what we have here, but it's not for everybody, but you can see that in another video where I talked about who will benefit from this method and how to approach it. So we have R here in this box, then we're going to put a 7 here in this box, because this one here, if it's the root, well, what's the half step code here? B and C, the 7 and the 1, 7, 1. You can also think of the R as a 1. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I like to use R because that you really want to anchor yourself with this square here, and that'll be your R here. Root. So, especially when you're making chords, based on the 1 of the scale. This is the 1 of the scale. Every chord has a root, and every mode has a root, and those chords and modes do not all stem from this box. This is this pattern. As you see, like a chord on a piano could be this note, and this note. It doesn't use the one note. A mode can start from the E and end on E and be a Phrygian mode, which is what that would be if you start on the 3rd, but that's a longer story. So as you see, don't get confused with chords and modes. Those can start anywhere, and when you're just figuring out the graph paper method, that gets kind of confusing fast, unless you can always reference a piano keyboard and visually tell your mind, hey look, this is what it is. That chord would start on the 3rd of the scale, so that's why, this is a navigation point to just know where the scale is. Then you can play the different chords, okay? A chord that starts on the 7th, a chord that starts on the other half step here, 3 and 4. So this box is always, my friends, always going to be labeled 3 and 4 when it's time to think about the pattern of basically how does a major scale work on the guitar. And by the way, you can lock this note in to the root note of basically this pattern will appear. This pattern that you're going to create all across the fretboard is going to appear anywhere. You can slide it down anywhere. When you play a song on the radio, you will eventually lock this pattern up with that song. I mean, perhaps not a jazz song in some jazz minor scale. There's some other things there, but that all gets... we'll eventually get to all those lessons, and you're going to find out some magical thing about this scale, which makes those scales a little easier. Okay, but however, every scale you hear on your classic rock radio station, when that plays all the greatest Tom Petty and Steve Miller and Aerosmith hits, but including your Pink Floyd and your Rush and a lot of other Led Zeppelin and your Sabbath and any other band you can imagine, in your Kansas and your everybody else. Kansas is like, wow, we gotta mention, cool. No, Kansas was great. Okay, so you'll be able to find this pattern in all of those songs, and I'm telling you, if you find one, it's in the 1% group, the 0.01% group that would not be in this scale. I'm telling you, man, this makes music everywhere in all shapes and forms. And go to your hip hop and pop stations, and they're all, and country stations are all jamming this scale. Um, and when they're not jamming the scale, they're using only the other 5 notes that are outside the scale. So anyways, we'll get into that. This one method won't make you a, ultimate master of the guitar right here, but take it in baby steps, and this will throw you out of the, boot you out of the pentatonic doldrums, stuck in the pentatonic box feeling. So, we get the hell on with this here. Sorry for a 2-minute ramble. Massive tendency to do that. So all we need to do then is create we got 4 notes. Let's blast this all over the fretboard. Now we want the 4 notes always connect, just like we know the octave pattern on the guitar is always skip 1 string and go up 2 frets, and in that diagonal order you have another 7. So it would follow that in this corner you can start drawing another box. However, we have to stop right there, because remember earlier I mentioned that your B and E string all shift up 1 fret. So here comes the guitar anomaly that creates a nice built-in anomaly here that helps keep a lot of people away from mastering their fretboard, because this is where it could get a little confusing, but it's really not. Once you graph paper it, your mind will always know that little string shift goes, oh yeah, here's the box, but the notes go confusing, and it doesn't appear to be a box because it's broken, shifted over 1 at this point. So this box gets broken. And 7R, 3 and 4 are always in your box. Okay? Your root, your 7th, your 3rd, and your 4th. All you're missing is your 2, 5, and 6. Where are 2, 5, and 6? But we'll get to that. Although right now I'm going to tell you 5 and 6 are always connected to your box. So if you have a root, you have a 5. If you have a 3, you have a 6. Now the B and the E are together. They don't shift anymore. The shift only occurs between these 2 frets right here. So we'll highlight them, the string shift part. So on top of a 3 is always a 6. On top of a 3 is always a 6. You can try to remember this order. I never had to do that. It just kind of like, once I know my root, I know I have a 5 above, a 5 over here. And on and on. I know I have a 3 below. Actually a 4 below. But here at the string shift between G and B, I know it's a little different. Anyways, so once you know those notes, you can fill out the rest of your box. Here, of course, the 6 is the 7, and the 7 is the box. So the 7 and the root are always together, so there's our box. The top of a box, now we would draw the rest of the box here. However, we're out of strings. The guitar stops at your E string. Ho, hello. So you've got half the box right there. Now here's a handy hint. There's 2 groups of boxes in diagonal order on the fretboard. Just like there's a group here and a group here, there's a diagonal order and then another diagonal order of the box. Whenever you have the half a box below, you have a full box on top. So starting at the E string here, we will draw a box right here. And we have a root, a 7, a 3rd, and a 4th. So if you were soloing right now, look at this pool of notes you have to pull from if you just knew that. Whenever I see this shape right here, that just alerted me that, hey, I know that shape. I'm in the bottom of a pentatonic box here with 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those gut notes, my guitar teacher taught me as the Aeolian scale, this, Aeolian scale. So I automatically know I've got these 2 notes right here, and lo and behold, on the bottom of a 3 is always a 6. After a root, we found the 2. Neat, huh? And that gives us a pattern here on the side of our box here, even though it's broken. What are our two notes on the side are always 2 and a 5. Hey, look what's above a 5, a 2. See how it all falls into shape? Now you take this in baby steps. You keep graphing this out, and then you keep going to your guitar and playing some of these bits, and you will learn this bit by bit, and then all of a sudden you will have the entire fretboard memorized as easy as possible. At least this is how it was easy to me. It may not be easy to you. Everybody thinks differently, okay? Everybody pictures the world, wired for the world, just a little differently. So in between a 5 and a 7 is a 6. And look at how that completes right there. And did that make a Aeolian pentatonic shape? Well, it sure did. Why is it called Aeolian? Look, it starts on the 6. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian 6. Aeolian 6. Aeolian shape. Boom. Proven. Right there. Numbers and graphs make this stuff solid. It's no more theory. It's no more jumble of mishwashy information. Some people kind of avoid this because they feel like once it gets mechanically stable in their mind's eye, that they'll no longer have interest in music and that it will suddenly be boring to them. And that was a fear I had that I approached this information very carefully with. And hanging back and checking it all out. How do I feel? How did it make me develop as a musician? Oh my God, it's like every day I can come up with something new on the guitar, know what it is, know how to link it up to other parts now to make things complex and start adding music. Oh my gosh. And I feel like I can say, someone says, oh, I'm a musician. I can say, yeah, hey, I think I'm a musician too, because check out what I know. Okay? Put yourself at this level, man, and memorize, and maybe if this takes a little work, here's probably the simplest way to get this work done to your mind. And when you do this work, you've done work other people haven't done, and you put yourself in that next category of musicianship, and perhaps you can begin calling yourself a musician as you develop this into your mind's eye. Let's keep rolling here. There's a little bit more information here. So we've got a box, which I think I'm going to color in a little second here. And let's finish off our box row here at this corner. In this corner we have our, well, actually the bottom of a box is 3 and 4. The corner of a 7 is a 4, and we have 3 and 4. Now if you look here, we have 4 7 4 7 4 7, of course accounting for the string shift there. You have a diagonal line. This is the diagonal structure of your fretboard, number 1. This is also your, in blues, you'll see root, flat 5th, root, flat 5th, root, flat 5th, flat 5th, root, flat 5th, root, flat 5th, root. That's your diminished row. Helps you find all those diminished substitutes in blues. Just knowing how it's organized right through there. Pretty handy, huh? I'm giving you all the main secrets. This is like the, what do you call it? The Freemason Secrets of the fretboard. Stuff they never told you. Powerful alien code revealed. Secret ancient aliens made this code. Okay, so at the top of a 6, we can see we have a 2 here. Stands to reason that the top of this 6 will have a 2. And, what should we do there to avoid that mistake I just made? And if you just said we should always account for the shift in strings between the G and B, you would be correctamundo, okay? And on top of a 2 is always a 3. No, on top of a 2 is always a 5. See if you're paying attention there, because before a 6 is always a 5. And so on and so forth. So right here, I want to draw you a little line right from here. I'm going to start here, and we're going to end it here. What we saw is the box pattern. The hardest box pattern for me to recognize was this one, where it's a half box, the whole box, the broken box, and then another half box. This is your sloppy box row. That's what we're going to call this. And it occurs right here. And how many frets have we covered right here? We've covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need 10, 11, and 12 to cover the entire fretboard in an octave. And the rest of the fretboard repeats from there. So how the heck do we do that? Well, let's go over some rules that we discussed earlier. Whenever there's a half box, what's at the bottom or at the top? Half box, full box. Half box, full box. See that neat little code built into the fretboard you never saw before? Now that's in your mind's eye, and you just became a better player. Or you can just eat something. So, okay. We've got 7, R, 3, and 4. 7, R, 3, and 4. So what is that? That's our 7. Little resolve in that box. On the guitar, you can maybe call that your resolution box, because it helps you resolve your fretboard problems. Oh, look at me go. So, overlapping this is your... Cool thing about all these patterns is everything is interlocked on the fretboard. You will have to tell your mind that, you're dealing with interlocking shapes. So whenever you're in this pattern, 1, 2, 3, you're always in this pattern, this box here. And this box is always connected to this box here, which is the same exact notes, but you're playing, you get the 2, and then this group here, you'll get the 5, and in this group you'll get the 6. So here's something you never knew about playing that little common 4-note pattern, 2-string 4-note pattern on the guitar, where you go, if I had my guitar in my hand I would play it, but I don't. So let me get on with my point here. You have the tough row here of broken box. The only good box is here, and a half box and a half box. So your next row should be a lot easier. Here is your, and it always interconnects, so here's the interconnection right here. You have your full box right here. And here's, there's always a black note in front of all these keys here. So, and this is starting to look like a beginning of a what's known as a Dorian pentatonic. So I'm going to put all these right here, and from 3 I'm going to connect 6 to 5. 5 above a root, but there's the string shift. Boom, boom. Proven. This is the front end of a Dorian box, so I could even just skip all my information here and just draw a straight line of boxes here, and this is the only part on the major scale on the fretboard where this occurs. So this can be like a mile marker. If your mind jumps onto this as a marker post as to where you are in the fretboard, go ahead and do it. So I'm thinking in terms of the pentatonic shell here. 1 4 1 4. There you have it. And let's see if that rings true. Before 3 we have a 2. Before a 7 we have a 6. Before a 5 we have a 4. Before a 2 we have a root. Before we have a 6 we have a 5. And before 3 we have a 2, just like the other E string. So we should have the same row, the same pattern, basically 6 2 5 root 4, root 4 6 2 5, root 4 6 2 and 2 and 5. Boom. So root 4 6 2 5. You might say, well, why does a 4 follow the 6 here? Remember your string shift. Normally a 4 and a 6 would be diagonal in every other place. Hopefully you just heard me mumbling there. I was talking out of the mic. So, here we are at 34 minutes in. Hopefully you're still holding on here, not crying, not fading away. Haven't turned this off already. Where's our next box? We're talking about boxes here. Box. It would normally be connected right here, but you have to account for the string shift. Once again, 7, 3, and 4. And then your final box that is connected here in perfect shape here is just like this box here, 7R 3 4. It's the exact box, an octave lower. So we have now covered the entire guitar fretboard, 7R 3 and 4. And if you know your guitar fretboard, If you can start here, what key are we in? If you just said the key of K, totally wrong. There's no key of K, dude. Oh my god. But if you just said E, F sharp, oh sorry. If you just said E, F, F sharp, and G, R is on the G, root is G, and there from G we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Well, you would be correct. Or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. There you go. We're in the key of G. Box, box, box. And let's finish this box off. I know there's a note right here. I know there's a note right here. And we got to fill in some gut notes there. I also know at the bottom of my box is the 6 is here. And then what do we need here? We need a 2 to be before the 3. Root 2, 3. And probably need our 5th here. 2, 5, and 7. Is that right? No, that's not right. E, 7, R. Was right. Boom, there you have it, folks. Did we miss a note here? I don't believe so. And let's take a look. Earlier I mentioned the pentatonic shape being in the middle here. So those are all the black keys on the piano. So we'll shade them in a darker color here. Well, you know what I think I'll do? Yeah, let's make them in a darker color. So look, you got a whole row there of notes that'll basically you won't play when you want to sound congruent, jamming inside the scale. And then after a while, jamming inside the scale might sound a little bit boring. You need to sweeten it up a bit. You can always sweeten up any of these notes. There's a flavor. Consider your black keys like a flavor enhancer. As soon as you want to enhance any note on your fretboard, slide into it. And when you hit a wrong note that you hear, that's like, oh my god, this note is just, it's not just too much tension. It totally sounds like you hit a wrong note. You just can see Victor Wooten's secret here that I've mentioned in a lot of other videos. Slide up a note. It'll sweeten up that good note, and it's always right there. If you go 2 notes ahead, you might hit another black key. And you will definitely sound like you just lost your place. And that's how you don't want to sound in an improvise. And that's what keeps people from improvising in front of a crowd, is that fear that they'll suddenly look like they're not the consummate professional that everybody else is up there jamming, who got confident on what a scale was and how it works on guitar. Pretty powerful stuff, eh? I hope you are enjoying this. I hope this is blowing your mind, because it blew my mind, and if I got some impact here, well, I'll be mighty happy. And if you don't like it, if there's some problem, if you are pretty pissed off right now, leave a comment. Tell me about why. I'm going to green note this root note because that is your Ionian root note here. Root note. Root note. How am I going to find all my root notes? I'm going to go in an angle here because that's how everything is found on the guitar. Angle, angle, angle. Angle, angle, angle. Do the angle tangle. And here we have the back to the G. So your 12th fret would be somewhere over the rainbow. Would be basically here. This is where your 2 dots would be on the fretboard. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Do 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 do. Think that was a major scale, that song? I bet you're right. I bet it was even Aeolian, but I'm just taking a guess there. But you can get good at guessing the sounds once you get familiar with this major scale, and then you break it up into its modes, and you start rocking. So what you can do with this chart then is color in other intervals. Maybe today you're playing something in Lydian, so this is your root today. and it'll be Lydian. If you play all these keys, this is how you unlock. I'll get to another here. I'll lead into my next lesson right here. So this is basically what I wanted to show you today, and we'll leave the lesson at that. For our next lesson, I'll show you that, basically, the title will go something along like this. Why play a Lydian scale when you can play a Lydian fretboard? This pattern I just showed you is this. How many modes is this pattern? It's Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian. Sorry about hitting the camera there. Lydian, Mixed Lydian, Aeolian, and the hardly used Locrian scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All modes. It's every one of these modes is here. The way to manipulate these modes is to not do anything. All you need to do, my friends, settle back into your chairs for this secret. All you need to do is play this pattern. Just like I showed you on the piano, if I hold down a low 2 key and play the white notes, I will evoke a Dorian sound. When I'm playing a low E, it'll totally make a different sound because that's the Phrygian sound, and on with each of these keys. The order is Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Ionian, Dorian, Lydian. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Just write that down. Keep it as a handy note. That's going to be a baby step for you. Just memorizing this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Memorizing in order. So you always know if you hear this note as a root, the major scale is here, but the root note is playing here. You'll know the sound that you're hearing in that song. Alrighty. That's why sometimes you hear a root note in a song, but the tone before this root note is not this flat seventh. You're like, well, how the hell did they get out of the major scale? No, they're playing in a mode of the major scale. Perhaps they're using the sixth, or even perhaps very commonly they're playing on the fifth. They're playing on a dominant chord, and as they go back and forth, you're going to hear a whole step. You're not going to hear a this movement. So, for example, let me just play a couple modal things here on a piano keyboard. That sounded a little sad. That was all the white keys. Why are the white keys sounding sad? Because I was pounding a D note, and the bottom in your ear collected all those tones and rallied them up against the D note, which it knew was the sound of Dorian, which is minor, and are based on a minor chord of the scale. So it perceived that that scale was jamming over a minor chord. And since those chord tones were ringing against the D, you're making a minor chord, and you're getting the minor Dorian sound. So let me do this again here, and I'll show you something else. All the white keys again. If that didn't sound like just a mess of crap to you, it was a happier sounding set of white keys because I was pounding the F note, which is the fourth, and the fourth is major, and the fourth is Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian. So it just jammed some Lydian sounding music there, and we were talking modes that your favorite guitarists use now, like some of the weird, when you hear Joe Satriani, and it's just something about it sounds otherworldly. Well, add in one little different note. You don't even know how to have to know how to add a different note. That's, I want you to notice this. Watch a whole bunch of other explaining the modes videos, and they get into the mechanics of each and every one of these modes and how they're different from the major scale, and that totally takes you away from your ability to get to your guitar and play the damn things out and make a Dorian sound. You don't necessarily need to know that the Dorian uses a flat third, but the major seventh and flat seventh, or whatever the case may be. You don't need to necessarily know all that to evoke the Dorian sound, make Dorian music, make Dorian fun, and then when you have fun with Dorian, it makes you want to explore it more and nail it down, all the little factoids about it, as well as all the little factoids about each and every other mode. And when everybody ever says anything that sounds confusing, you just look at your chart here and you go, hey, I got this all on paper, let me look. Oh yeah, look, they are talking about the fifth there because it's right there. Oh, hey, look, oh yeah, it does have a sixth in it. That note is there in that Eric Johnson chord. All right. And chords, when you got to build your chart like this, then you know, like, okay, here's my root, and this what does a 6 and a 2 sound like? This says root 6-2, or he's playing a 6-2 chord. Well, pluck a root and a 6 and a 2, and you've got your basic root 6-2 chord right there. And then you can see how that jazz 7th chord works. You put the root here, and you got the flat 7th, the flat 3rd, and the jazz minor chord works where they put the root here, maybe with your thumb, and just play these 3 notes, pluck them. Hey, what do you know? You got a root, a flat 7th, flat 3rd, and a 5th. There's your minor. That's why major goes this, like a kind of like an A minor cowboy chord, open chord. But play the root up here, and you get a major 7th chord. Why is it a major 7th? Look, you've got a root and the major 7th, and a major 3rd, and a 5th. Your happy 3rd, your stabilizing root, stabilizing 5th, sorry. And a 5th always stabilizes the root. That's why all chords have a root and a 5th. And we'll go on from there. We'll leave you at that. This has been a pleasant 46 minutes of description, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Thank you for watching, and please, please, please subscribe. Have a great day.